Hello and welcome, I'm Chaos Governor and I'm back. I haven't filmed in over 3 weeks, which feels crazy to me. I tend to film pretty much every few days, at least once a week, and the month of May has just been a rough month for me. I released 3 videos. It is now already June 7th, I believe. And yeah, one was pre-filmed and the other 2 were like 5-minute videos that I did while feeling just in a lot of pain. I have chronic pain and it has been affecting me a lot. And it's hard because I find that one of the hardest parts of chronic pain is feeling like you're trapped in your mind. But then when I'm not able to like get up and like film and stuff, it feels like I'm just more trapped because I'm not able to express myself in ways that I would like to. So this is my overdramatic beginning to say I really miss this and I'm really excited to be filming again. We all have existential crises and mine tend to come in reading lots of books of genres that I don't normally read. So sometimes that means reading like 9 Agatha Christie books in a week. And this one meant reading a tons of romance. I also read 1 classic, 2 fantasies, and 2 thrillers, which I don't really read a lot of thrillers either, so it has been an interesting time, but I have read so many books in June already, and because it will be way too much for a wrap-up at the end of the month, I thought I would talk about them, and then I will backdate some of my other videos and film them. The first book that I read was Happily Never After, and this is a romance by Lynn Painter, and the premise is that this girl does not want to get married because her soon-to-be husband has cheated on her and he has cheated on her once again. So her best friend pays someone to come and object, and then they start objecting and they fall in love. I thought it was really sweet, I had lots of fun, and then I read a bunch of romances after it. And then right after that I read Sing If You Can't Dance. This is a book that I'd had on my TBR ever since Olivia-Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe had talked about it and talked about the disability representation. It follows a girl who collapsed at age 16. She was the captain of her dance team and was just really athletic. And then we're following her a year and a half later as she's still dealing with hypermobility and all of the other effects of her disability. And I found this book really powerful and lovely. As someone who developed a chronic illness at age 20 and dealt with all the effects of like how it upended my life, it's something that I can really relate to. And I just thought that she's a very messy main character. She's not very likable and she's very guarded, but she also has a soft side, and I appreciated the dynamics to her relationship. And it's so often anyone with a disability is like a saint, and she really isn't. A lot of her choices are not excusable, but that doesn't make her a person that is not worthy of love or accommodation or of all of those things. And yeah, it just had some really great scenes that I really loved, and the love interest was nice. A lot of these love interests are just like very, very nice men that are just like, I'm obsessed with you, which I'm just like, I really wish men in romance got to be like slightly different, you know, differentiated from each other. Like, not that you can't be like, oh, I'm like a big fan of you, but they just all seem to be like, I'm obsessed with you. Which I'm just like, okay, sure. And then right after that, I read Stepford Wives by Ira Levin. This was the classic book that I read so far, and I really love classics. They're my favorite genre to read. I love looking at the history. And this is a book that is definitely more remembered as a movie than as a book because the movie came out shortly after. But I really enjoyed going in and her discovering it. And it's written by a man in the 1970s and deals with feminist issues, and also does minorly deal with like the civil rights movement, which I also really appreciated. And I thought the women were very well-rounded, especially Joanna, the main character, just felt like a very well-rounded character who had a lot of depth in her reactions. She didn't feel like a woman written by a man, which was really great considering the premise of the book. So yeah, I really liked it and I would recommend it. It's very short. I'm looping the next 3 books together because they are a series, but I did not read any of them back to back. But the first one is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, and I really appreciated this book. This was my least favorite of the series. Like, I felt like the series got better and better, but this was pretty good. It has a very, very cinnamon bun, I love you, I'm obsessed with you main character love interest, which I thought was fine, you know, but Daniel was great. I could deal with him being less obsessed. I feel like that's why romance books don't work for me all the time. I'm just like, okay, I want 2 people to like be best friends and love each other and have all the romance, but not be so obsessed with each other. The thing that I appreciated most about it was that it dealt with abusive relationships, and also abusive relationships that aren't just physical. And I think that that representation is almost never seen. The main character was in a long-term relationship with a guy who's 10 years older than her. They were both doctors, where her parents were also doctors and her brother was a doctor, and it's like the family business. Meanwhile, Daniel, who is the love interest, lives in this small town. He's a mayor, he has a B&B, he has all of these things, and her car breaks down going through his town. They end up meeting and hitting it off, and the romance goes from there. And I really liked this book. The next one is yours truly, and I really appreciate this. This is about 2 ER doctors, and they end up having a little bit of a rough meeting, but they end up writing letters together and falling in love. And I really love him because he has anxiety, and I think that is very well represented. And the main character, Brianna, her brother, Benny, he has a chronic illness, which means that he needs a kidney. And I really appreciate the representation of this as someone who has a close friend's dad who has this. And I've seen dialysis, and I've seen the wear that it has taken on him. And I connected a lot to this and connected to her struggle as someone who loves someone who needs so much caretaking, and just like not knowing if you're ever going to get help is just something that is really hard to live through. And I think that was well represented. And in the author's note, Abby Jimenez actually reveals that she went through this herself. She had kidney disease and she ended up going into remission, but for a long time she was worried about what it meant for her life. And I think that representing chronic illness is something that's so important to me, and I thought that her characters just get better and better, and the dynamics get really good, and I just love the way that these characters came together. And then following yours truly, I didn't think I would love the third book as much, and I really did. I really appreciated the way that it dealt with growing up, and the way that the main character, her experience of dealing with an emotionally neglected mother and someone who was not always there for her, and the way that that has impacted her life. And it's just a really powerful story about two people coming together and supporting each other and supporting those around them. Like, it had a real good community feel, and also just her best friend Maddie and how she understands each other and advocates for her. And like, there's just like, sometimes friends feel like they're just friends because they're friends, but these girls felt like they were friends and they knew each other. And the way that it described someone becoming overwhelmed and avoiding, it wasn't just for miscommunication. It's something that I felt like really strongly as someone who can definitely feel overwhelmed and retreat. I felt the way that her life was represented just touched me a lot. So I also appreciate this one. And then I have two more rom-coms to talk about, and then I will talk about my other books. But yes, I read Practice Makes Perfect, and this was by Sarah Adams, and it was in between the two Abby Jimenez books, and it did pale in comparison. I didn't love it as much, and I was really looking for a closed book romance, and this is a book that is mostly closed door, and I appreciated that. I just felt like the characters didn't live off the page in the same way, so it was unfair of me to put it beside some of my best books of this year so far, but what can I say? And then I also read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I read Beach Read long ago, and it's, you know, one of the most popular books currently. And I liked it. I liked that she dealt with a lot of topics, but I also found that I really like romance where we see both the male and female perspective and we like see them interact, and you don't have that. I know I was surprised when Beach Read only had the perspective of the female protagonist, and then this one also had that. So I was like, oh no, oh no. So yeah, that happened again. So I liked it. I really liked the family dynamics, again, between the two sisters. I thought they were really powerful, and they definitely brought tears to my eyes, and I appreciated also the family dynamics and kind of discussing it. But I just felt that the male protagonist, I didn't get as much of him because we only knew what he told her. So like, I wanted more from him, because I did like a lot of the romance. I thought it was, you know, I love, you know, editor, and I really appreciated how much they loved books, and the references were not just the most like blatant references. You can really tell that Emily Henry exists in the publishing world currently and is making references to like Alyssa Cole or like other authors that are more common, or about Salman Rushdie's facial hair, which was probably the times that I laughed. I laughed hard, and then I rewound that I laughed hard again and was like, ah, this is perfect. So, you know, so often you see like adaptations of like what literary world looks like, and I'm like, this does not feel like what I know. That I'm not in it, but adjacently I know some information about it, and this does not feel right. And then in between all of these books, I also read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This is a book that has been one of the most popular books of last year, and I've been really excited to read it, and I finally did. I liked it. This one is a slight spoiler, but I think that pretty much from the back cover already things, I think in the first time she talks to him, she's like, I think my other professor happens to be a fairy. So, sorry. But one of my favorite aspects is that he's 1/4 brownie and he can't stop cleaning. That was probably my most endearing part of this entire book. It reminded me a lot of Holly Black's fairies. Like, I know it's not completely the same, but it did make me want to read The Cruel Prince again. I was like, oh, I just love, you know, her thinking and discovering the world. I didn't feel like the other characters were as like, it was about the community, and it was about the community that she was visiting. She is a fairyologist. She's on a research journey way into the north of Europe in 1909. And yeah, I'm really excited for the second book because I'm hoping it's taking place in like Paris or wherever that thing, and we'll get a little bit more. But I definitely liked it. It was a really solid book. It wasn't quite my favorite book, you know? And right after that I thought, I should read some other books that people always recommend to me that I never read. So I read The Inheritance Games, and this is a book that kind of disappointed me. I know that I'm not a big mystery person. I love mysteries and fantasy books and other aspects. I sometimes delve into Agatha Christie, but like it is rare. And I found this book not my type of book. Like I wanted to like it. I don't think it was a bad book. I would recommend it, but it's not a book that like I felt invested in, and I was kind of ready for it to end, even though I was not having a bad time, but I was ready for it to be over long before it was over. And then because I'd only read 10 books in 5 days, I said to my roommate, choose which book. So I gave her a choice of 3, and she chose If We Were Villains. Because Stratford Festival is local to me, and they perform 12 plays each year from April to October. And about 3 to 4 of them are always Shakespeare, and then there's a variety of others. And me and my roommate have gotten a head start in the season. We have seen Twelfth Night, we have seen Cymbeline, and we've seen Romeo and Juliet. And I will leave a little bit of a vlog at the end because I was vlogging because I needed to get there in the rain and I want to talk about my thoughts, but I will leave it at that end as I dramatically talk about my imposition on the fact that what am I going to do because it is pouring rain and I don't have an umbrella and the theater is there. But you know, I went and saw Cymbeline like 2 days ago and I really liked it. It's one of the plays I hadn't seen before. I also was really surprised by Romeo and Juliet. I've always liked it, but I've never loved it, and like I just felt like I saw it and I saw so many different dynamics of it, and it gave me a greater appreciation. I probably haven't like I don't think I've fully immersed myself in it probably since I was a teenager. As I talked about in my Shakespeare journey tag, that I like memorized the monologue and I've like flipped through and like read parts of it and stuff like that. So I am familiar with it. I'm just not like, I have not read it beginning to end or seen it performed in probably about 10 years. So it was really, really cool. I really loved the innocence of Juliet and so much of the focus on their love and how much youthful bliss they have, and then to turn that on the corner. You really see their dynamics beautifully. So, and I also love that these actors are shared between productions. So most of the actors are in at least 3 of the productions, but because of the different times, like a lot of the cast of Twelfth Night and Romeo and Juliet were the same. And then I don't think there was any crossover with Cymbeline, but Cymbeline had lots of actors that I'd seen in previous seasons and I really like. So yeah, it was just really, really lovely to see them all performed, and it was a perfect time to read If We Were Villains because that is the Shakespearean mammoth. They talk in Shakespeare lyrics completely. And I think I would have always loved this book, but because I was coming off, you know, seeing 3 Shakespeare plays in the last month, I was definitely prepared. Like they were quoting Romeo and Juliet and I was like, oh, I saw that like 8 days ago. Cool. It is a thriller dark academia classic from 2017. I've been wanting to read it since 2017 and I never have, but it became really popular in the last few years. And it's often compared to Secret History, a book that I DNF'd. But yes, it is a book that focuses a lot on these 7 friends and their dynamics and the roles they play. And I don't really give anything away, but if you like Shakespeare, you like a dark academia, you like friendships, her new book also focuses on friendships. And I was like, yes, like the vibes and the dynamics and the characters were all so fleshed out, but I felt like these people were a friend group with all of the nuances and dynamics that creates. So really, really love that book. Highly recommend it. And then the books that I'm currently reading or DNF'd, I've been reading Emily of New Moon, and this is the same author as Anne of Green Gables, and it's been really lovely. It's a little gothic. She is, you know, her father has died, she's going into the town, she's very obsessed with many things. I am enjoying it. I am doing bad at listening to audiobooks rather than this. And then I have spent some time in the doctor's office and I've been reading poems, and those have been really delightful. It doesn't even have a cover because I got it from a free little library like 3 years ago, but I love it. It was collected in 1967 by Hazel Fellman, and it's like 400 pages of collected poems throughout the world. And yeah, I just found some ones that I really loved. I need to look him up. His name was Ogden Nash, and he was very funny. He made fun of other people. There was one called like Man of Golden Talents, and he's just making fun of all the worst traits of all of the other poets. It's great. So I hope that he's not a terrible man, because sometimes you read people's poems and you're like, and then you find out they're terrible. R.I.P. Ezra Pound, who broke my heart. I read his poems, I was like, and then with like 3 poems left, I was like, I need to know about this man. And then I found out he was a Nazi, and I was like, I was so deeply upset. I was like, I guess I am just going to never think about these beautiful poems again. It was a very sad moment in my life. Anyways, but hopefully I'll find out that he's an okay guy. I've heard his name before, but I can't remember. He's either in the 18th or 20th century, somewhere in there. And then I started lessons in chemistry at the beginning of the month, and then it deals with a rape very early on, like, and quite graphically, and I was just like, this is not a headspace. When I talk about my May books, you'll understand that I read a lot of heavy books, and that was part of the reaction. I was like, I need things that don't deal with violence or like racial hate or abuse. You know, those are the things like on page that I just really don't feel like I have stamina to read anymore of. And yeah, so I DNF'd that. I hope to read it at some point. It was a fine written book and I was interested. And then I'm currently in the middle of Mrs. March. I'm about halfway through this. I'm almost thinking that I might want to put it down. Like, you know, If We Were Villains was dark in a way that I could handle. This book is a very self-hating book. It's about like how she thinks that everyone hates her. And it's so realistic, and it's so realistic, and you so get in your head that I could just feel my life force like sucking from me. I was like, does everyone hate me? Which means that she did a great job, but it definitely feels like claustrophobic obsession, and brilliantly written. She's been married to her husband for about 15 years. She started her relationship as an affair with him. He was a professor, she was a student. It's been many years, and he has just published a new book. He's a very celebrated author, and someone makes the suggestion that the main character is based on her. And the main character is not a nice woman, and no one will sleep with her because she's ugly. So our main character, not impressed. So I would love to know which books you've been reading, which books you've been writing, which books you have been exploring or thinking about, or any of them. Have you read any of the books that I have read? I would love to hear it. And I'm really, really happy to be filming again. It always feels like coming home. I don't know if you can hear the rain behind me, but you can probably see it on that. I was literally just reading something that I wrote about Marianne and Eleanor from Sense and Sensibility. Jane Austen July is coming up. I am so psyched. I'm in Stratford. I'm going to watch Cymbeline, a play by Shakespeare that I know very little about. I'm in a lot of pain, so I put extra makeup on. When I'm tired and can't get the bags out of my eyes, I go, this is the time where I should wear... I'm laughing at how much it is raining. About 40 minutes ago, I left home, and I'm going for a play in Stratford, and I thought, it feels like it's gonna rain. It was raining earlier, and then I thought, you know what, I love mid-summer rainstorms getting soaked through. It will be poetic, because, you know, there's lots of not parking around, so I normally park in the park and then walk to wherever is closest to the theater, which is normally about 5 minutes or so. Down in rain. Why did I think this was romantic? And I realized in this moment I am Marianne Dashwood. I am the girl full of sensibility that says, let's go out in a rainstorm. I thought, as I was locking my door, I thought, should I bring a raincoat? And then I said, no, I'm not gonna bring a raincoat. It will ruin the vibes. I'm wearing a dress and I was tired, so I put It's raining so bad. Darn me and my romanticism.